Good afternoon. It's the 11th of June. You're tuned into Arirang News, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kwon Jang-ho, and it's good to have you with us. In 18 hours, for the first time in history, a North Korean leader will meet with a sitting US president. It's being called the summit of the century by some, and perhaps showing how seriously Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump are taking it. Both arrived in Singapore 2 days early. However, negotiations between the two sides seem to be continuing until the last minute, with further working-level talks taking place today. Is a deal in place, and what will it look like? We'll try to answer those questions and further preview the historic summit with our expert guest later. But first, we head over to our news centre, where Devin Whiting brings us the latest updates. Devin?
Yes, hi, Jang-ho. We're all closely watching Singapore, and as you said, negotiations appear to be still ongoing. Sources providing some interesting views into those final preparations. And President Trump tweeted a couple of hours ago that it's great to be in Singapore and that excitement is in the air. That certainly seems to be the case. Our Lee Ji-won is standing by in Singapore at the International Media Center as part of our special summit coverage team. Let's go to her now for the latest. Ji-won, what do you have for us?
Devin, the U.S. President Donald Trump sat down at noon with the Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong at the Istana, the presidential residence. The two leaders met for about 2 hours, during which they also had a working lunch. Now, we also saw Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, National Security Advisor John Bolton, and White House Chief of Staff John Kelly among the delegates accompanying Trump. Now, we'll make sure to update you on the details of that meeting once we find out more. Now, we are told that the U.S. team will hold a press briefing at 5 p.m. local time at the White House Press Center set up at Singapore's JW Marriott Hotel. That's 2 hours from now. Now, we'll be hearing from administration officials, and many are guessing that it could be about the latest developments from this morning's prep talks.
Right, Ji-won, the prep talks, those are between high-level officials from Pyongyang and Washington getting ready for the main event. Can you tell us more about those talks?
Sure, Devin. On the U.S. side is the American ambassador to the Philippines, Sung Kim, who is also a former nuclear negotiator. And on the North Korean side is the Vice Foreign Minister, Choi Sun-hee. The two met for less than 2 hours this morning at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Neither of them spoke to reporters, but they are believed to have put the final touches on the agenda for tomorrow's summit. Now, these two were at the forefront of recent negotiations at the Inter-Korean border village of Panmunjom, where they met 6 times to discuss the agenda. The discussions seem to have hinged on the notion of North Korea's complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization, or CVID. Unnamed sources say the U.S. seeks to get a commitment from the North to CVID in writing, but Pyongyang is protesting strongly against the phrase because it sees it as portraying the regime as a defeated country. And so the point to watch out for is whether the U.S. will, in exchange, give North Korea a complete, verifiable, and irreversible guarantee of its security. Many experts also say the discussion of a front-loaded approach is likely to have taken place. The front-loaded agreement is where the North will have to first give up all its ready-made nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, that is the latest we have on the summit. But to tell you more on the general preparations being made, the South Korean Media Center has opened today in Singapore and will have an official briefing there from the government later today. We'll be back for more updates later.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to that. Thank you, Ji-won, reporting live from Singapore there. Now, there might be yet another meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un not long after this one, and it could be in Pyongyang. According to South Korean daily JoongAng-ilbo, citing a local source in Singapore, Kim Jong-un has invited President Trump to North Korea for a second summit next month. The source says that the two leaders are looking to discuss denuclearization in general at the Singapore summit and the details in Pyongyang. If the second summit does go ahead, the same source says there could be yet another one in Washington, D.C. in September. And President Trump is reportedly open to setting up an American embassy in North Korea. U.S.-based news website Axios cites sources familiar with preparations for the Singapore summit, who says it's one of the many topics that could be discussed at the meeting. Talk of a U.S. embassy in Pyongyang, it says, has been part of working-level discussions held by the two sides about establishing formal diplomatic relations. A source close to the White House, however, said such a move would depend on what President Trump gets in return, and for an embassy in the North, denuclearization would have to be underway. Meanwhile, countries near the Korean Peninsula are watching the events in Singapore closely. China, of course, is the North's main ally and trading partner, one of the few that it has. Russia has been reaching out to Pyongyang as well, and Japan has sent several high-level officials to Singapore to stay abreast of what's happening there. Park Ji-won explains.
Ahead of the historic summit between Pyongyang and Washington, China seems to be maintaining its long-held special influence over North Korea. The Chinese government has offered North Korean leader Kim Jong-un a special jet for him and his personal entourage to travel to Singapore. The jet, equipped with secure satellite communications, has been used by top Chinese government officials, including President Xi Jinping and his personal aides, when traveling abroad. China will be looking to play a significant role in the current situation with North Korea.
China is a main party of the issues of the Korean Peninsula, and a signing party of the armistice agreement will continue to assume its appropriate role.
Russia is also working to restore relations with Pyongyang. North Korea's state-run media reported earlier this month that North Korea and Russia have agreed to hold a bilateral summit later this year, commemorating the 70th anniversary of their establishment of diplomatic ties. Russia's foreign ministry conveyed its support for Pyongyang's will to denuclearize. Japan, meanwhile, is closely monitoring the situation surrounding the historic talks between Pyongyang and Washington by sending a delegation of senior officials to Singapore. The delegation, which includes the head of Japan's National Security Council, Shotaro Yachi, arrived in Singapore Sunday and is tasked with gathering information on the results of the talks.
It is paramount that we urge the U.S. to push for a complete resolution of the North nuclear and missile issues, as well as abductee issues.
With the Korean Peninsula's neighbors closely watching the summit, the international power dynamics in the region could soon change based on the result of the summit talks. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
People living in Singapore seem to be pleased with all the attention their country is getting and are proud of the role it's playing in this historic meeting. Oh Jung-hee is part of Arirang's special coverage team for the summit, and she files this report from Singapore.
The eyes of the world are fixed on the Southeast Asian city-state of Singapore, half nervous, half excited. Among those looking forward to the summit, amid the pressure and maxed-out security, are regular Singaporean citizens.
I think this is going to be a very big event, as two major countries are here in Singapore, major heads. I think we are quite glad that it's being chosen. Because we are such a small country, this actually is a good exposure for us to be known to the world.
Singapore had long been considered the summit's most likely location due to its political and economic neutrality concerning Pyongyang and Washington. Also, the city-state has plenty of experience holding major international events like the annual Asia Security Summit. In 2015, it hosted the first summit talks between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Taiwan's then-President Ma Ying-jeou. As the venue for another historic meeting, Singaporeans hope the summit brings about meaningful results.
It's a great opportunity for the two of them to come here for the meeting. And we Singaporeans, we will support both of them have a good settlement. Eventually, we wish that they will open house for the world, and we have a peaceful talk and for the world peace.
What's drawing the most attention is what the first encounter will be like when the two unconventional leaders of North Korea and the U.S. meet face-to-face. We will be able to see that coming together with our own eyes in less than a day from now. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News, Singapore.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
The leaders of North Korea and the US are both in Singapore for the big summit tomorrow. They arrived 2 days early, seemingly to prepare for the unprecedented meeting. Kim Mo-kyun has more details on their arrival to the island state.
2 days ahead of the historic North Korea-US summit, the leaders of both North Korea and the United States arrived in Singapore on Sunday. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un arrived at Changi International Airport at around 2:30 p.m. local time on a private Chinese jet from North Korea. After he was welcomed by Singaporean Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan, he headed straight to his hotel, the St. Regis. Together with him were Vice Chairman of the ruling Workers' Party Central Committee Kim Young-chul, Pyongyang's Minister of Foreign Affairs Lee Yong-ho, and his own sister Kim Yo-jong. In the evening, Kim Jong-un spoke with Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong at Istana, the official office of the President of Singapore. Singapore's Foreign Affairs Ministry said that Kim thanked his Singaporean counterpart for hosting the summit, and Lee praised Kim and Trump for their, quote, bold and admirable decision and wished for the success of the summit and for a peaceful Korean peninsula. U.S. President Donald Trump left Canada on Saturday on Air Force One after attending the G7 meeting. At around 8:30 in the evening, some 6 hours after Kim landed, Trump touched down at Singapore's Paya Lebar Air Base, and he too was greeted by Balakrishnan. On board with Trump were Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, National Security Advisor John Bolton, White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, and White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders. The following day, President Trump also met with Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong for talks. The detailed schedules of the two leaders have not been released yet, but there's speculation that the summit will not take that long, as Reuters reported that the North Korean leader is tentatively scheduled to depart Singapore at 2 p.m. local time on Tuesday, which would be just 5 hours after his historic meeting with Trump, which starts at 9 that morning. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, to discuss these final developments that are coming out of Singapore before the big day, we have with us Professor Kim Hyun-wook from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. It's good to have you with us again, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump arrived on Sunday quite a bit earlier than previously we expected. What do you make of the fact that they came so early?
Well, I think the current level of negotiations and agreements in a working level has not been really close yet, I don't think. I mean, they have been talking and talking. Kim Young-chul's letter to Donald Trump made some breakthrough that would move forward the negotiation in the working level. But I don't think there have been agreement in a very important issues yet. So I think the working level people, I think they have arrived on 9th, and two presidents have arrived in Singapore on 10th. So I think they have been talking and discussing. Even now, I think they're working about how to make a draft much more refined until the summit, I think. So maybe they come and write with the two presidents. There might be more close talks and negotiation possible. I think that's the reason why they came earlier.
We'll go on to those negotiations in just a bit. But first, Kim Jong-un's movements. There was a lot of focus on how he was going to come to Singapore, when he was going to come, but a lot of it was very much shrouded in secrecy, and there was also a lot of red herrings to put us off our scent. There were supposedly 3 planes that were supposed to come. We didn't know which one he was on. Do you think there was a reason why he ended up doing it this way? Do you think there was trying to put the international media off their scent?
Yes, I think this is the first time trip to a foreign country, except for China, for Kim Jong-un. I think he might have worried a lot about his security issues. Of course, he chartered an airplane from China. I think North Koreans are very self-confident and proud, and there's many experts have predicted that Kim Jong-un will take his own airplane, not Chinese airplane. But I was thinking, what is more important? That pride is more important or security is more important? I think security is more important. I mean, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's airplane, it's been too old. I think it has been made in 1955, and there might be possibility, even though very low, of airplane collapse in the middle of flying from Pyongyang to Singapore. And also, you mentioned that there have been 3 airplanes which have took off with 1 hour interval. So after one airplane took off, after 1 hour there has been another airplane that has took off. So made a lot of people in national aviation confused over which one is the one that Kim Jong-un is riding. So all this kind of thing, even after he has landed at Changi Airport, he nobody, I think, no reports, media reports have cut a scene of Kim Jong-un moving into the hotel from his limousine. So I think all these things are kind of a proof that he is really worrying and concerned about the security of himself, I think.
But isn't it slightly almost embarrassing that Kim Jong-un and North Korea have a multi-billion-dollar nuclear missile plan, but no plane for him to get from North Korea to Singapore? Isn't that, for a regime like North Korea and for a leader like Kim, how would that be viewed in North Korea?
Well, I think that would have some kind of strategic, purpose. I think, borrowing and chartering the airplane from China, I think that will give some message to the United States and China altogether. To China, okay, you're worrying about, excluded from the, the declaration of the end of Korean War. There have been a lot of rumors and messages by especially South Korean government about that 3 countries, South Korea, North Korea, and the U.S. declaring the end of Korean War someplace, maybe Singapore, which I don't think is unlikely. And China is really worrying about that and trying to put stronger ties with North Korea, worrying about depriving North Korea, very important buffer state, to the United States. So I think this is a very clear message that, okay, North Korea, China is still very important countries, good relations, but at the same time, good messages to the President Trump. Okay, my backup is China. Okay, if you turn down the offers and proposals of North Korea, do not come up with a very happy agreement, I think China would be an important support country to North Korea. This is a very clear message and very good leverage to deal with President Trump at the negotiation table, I think.
So quite a political message. Now, going to Donald Trump, he also arrived on Sunday evening. Before he departed, though, where he left the G7 summit in Canada, he said he would know in 1 minute whether the summit with Kim would be successful once he's met him. What do you make of those remarks? You don't think the meeting will end in 1 minute, do you?
Well, he always made this kinds of messages. I mean, he is trying to show to the international community that he is someone different from other previous presidents. He knows how to deal with, counterparts. His masterpiece of, negotiations and deal making. And that kind of message is given at this time that, okay, in 1 minute, I know whether Kim Jong-un is ready to make a serious and sincere deal with him or not. Kind of, messages to Kim Jong-un himself. Okay, if you're not serious, I will definitely know that I will kick out of, move out of the negotiation table. So, be serious about a sincere deal. Kind of, message to, Kim Jong-un, I think.
North Korean state media reported on Kim's arrival in Singapore. Now, it was quite a surprise for many reasons. I mean, one of them being because North Korean media normally reports on summits like this after they finished. And they also showed that the plane that he was on was Chinese. There was a big Chinese flag on the plane, which you could clearly see on the front page. What do you read from this, North Korean media, that they want to let people know about this summit?
Yes, this is a very, exceptional messages. At Rodong newspaper and Central News TV of North Korea, there have been reports about Kim Jong-un, having a summit meeting with President Trump in Singapore. Usually when he meets a leader of China in somewhere, Beijing or Dalian, until he comes back to North Korea, there have been no reports from North Korean media. But this time, he just departed from Pyongyang and there came out the media inside North Korea. Very exceptional. I think he's trying to make this a very formal and open policy inside North Korea. He's going out to Singapore to have a talk with Trump about denuclearization, but at the same time to receive a regime guarantee from President Trump. I think he's making very clear that his policy has changed. But at the same time, he's making it very open that, okay, now he's taking a, Air China, which is Chinese airplane chartered by North Korea, which I think might be a shame for North Korean leaders. If Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung chartered airplane from China, I don't think he would have reported domestically. It's a shame for the leader of North Korea. But I think he's trying to be open. He's trying to be a normal leader and making North Korea a normal country. I think his stance looking at the international community and also people in North Korea is changing.
So working level talks between the two sides, North Korea and the US, carried out today involving Sung Kim on the US side and Choi Son-lee on the North Korean side, like they've been doing over the last few weeks in Panmunjom. Now, having a meeting before the day of the summit, though, doesn't that suggest that they're still perhaps not ready and that they're still trying to make the details of the deal, putting it all together? I mean, how do you view the situation?
Yes, you're right. I don't think two countries have come up with very key issues yet. The gap is still there. Some of the important issues on agenda, I think, would be the CVID issue. I mean, the President Trump made it clear repeatedly that CVID is the objective of Trump's North Korea policies. And inside the United States, if we repeal the CVID, the aftermath would be very tremendous. So he has to go for it. There will be no change in his objective. And that's something that North Korea is not happy to accept. I mean, CVID, very tough term. First, the verification itself is very tough. The US experts and IAEA experts would go into North Korean territory. They open all the facilities to check out whether North Korean scientists are developing any materials or weapons there. Opening up whatever they are asking to open is a very shameful, behavior and response from North Korean perspective. And also, secondly, irreversible. Irreversible means that, completely removing all the assets and technologies that enables North Korea to develop nuclear weapons, including scientists and people and everything. So that, I think, it would be very shameful thing for North Korea. I mean, North Korean scientists should move to foreign countries, including the United States. They have to go there. Maybe they can work there as a scientist or for some other jobs they would have to take. That's really nonsense from the North Korean perspective. I think that's the foremost important agenda they have to narrow the gap with.
There's so much to talk about, but we're already running out of time. But the big day is finally upon us. Professor, give us your final thoughts going into tomorrow, going into this day. What do you think could happen? What could go wrong? And what would you like to say now?
I don't think they would not have a very complete agreement about the denuclearization and regime guarantee issues. But anyhow, they will come up with an agreement. And also at the same time, they will try to come up with a second or third summits. On the pathways, I think they would narrow the gap and make the agreement more and more complete, and trying to deepen the relationship between US and North Korea. They have already exchanged their views that what is more important is to make a trust upon each other. Much bigger and bigger trust is something that they need. So I think that's an important thing that they're taking a first step tomorrow.
Well, thank you for coming in today, and thank you for your insights as always. And we look forward to discussing this in more detail once the results of the summit come out.
Okay, thank you very much.
The North Korea-US summit is just hours away now, and we here at Arirang News will be providing special live coverage of the event starting from 7 a.m. Korea time. We'll bring you all the breaking news, live updates and expert analysis of everything coming out of Singapore, so do tune in throughout the day on Tuesday and into Wednesday as well. Thank you for watching and hope you do join us later. Goodbye.